Hey guys, back in episode 3, I had a topic about LinkedIn marketing, how to use it proficiently for your brand, for your business, how to grow your business using the power of LinkedIn. And I also promised you in that episode that I was going to at some point invite a guest to help you further with that knowledge and how to use it. And I understand that it took a while, and I'm sorry about that. But I finally got her pinned down. She was a very wanted person in terms of the LinkedIn space. A lot of people go to her. She offers LinkedIn training. She offers a ton of information just on LinkedIn alone. I mean, she does all the social media marketing, but LinkedIn is her specialty. And I finally got her on a show, and I'm going to introduce her to you in a few minutes. So without further ado, welcome to episode 25, which starts right now.
Hello, and welcome to Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. If you are not getting the results you are looking for from your digital marketing efforts, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's the host of our show, the local business guy himself, Frank Deming.
Hello, everyone. This is Frank Deming, the local business guy, and welcome to episode 25 of episode 25 of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses. Anyway, I've been saying that so often that sometimes I even forget my own title of my podcast. But anyway, like I said in the pre-intro, I have a special announcement for you today, a special guest, rather, that is going to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, especially for all of you local marketing junkies out there and local marketing and local business owners. You're going to get a lot out of it. And even if you don't, what we're going to be talking about is LinkedIn, and is primarily a B2B platform. However, even if you don't have a B2B thing to sell, this is a perfect platform to use outside of the B2B space as well. And my special guest is going to talk about that later on the show. But before we get into that and I give you a formal introduction, just want to do some housekeeping stuff. Number one, as always, if you want to be a guest on my show, you can reach us at 888-416-7752. I repeat, 888-416-7752. And someone will reach back to you, and you can talk about when you're going to be on the show. Another thing that you want to do is, if there's a specific topic that you want us to cover here, maybe you're struggling with getting traffic to your website, maybe you're struggling with getting kind of engagement to your social media, again, hit us up at 888-416-7752, or you can send us an email at info@lbmsllc.com. Second housekeeping item that I have for you is, if you are a podcast junkie like I am, you've probably thought about starting your own as well. So I can tell you, starting a podcast was one of the best decisions that I've made. However, it can be overwhelming. That's where Buzzsprout comes in. Buzzsprout is by far the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. In fact, they have already helped over 100,000 people successfully launch and promote their podcasts. Buzzsprout will ensure that your podcast is distributed to every major podcasting platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, just to name a few. The best part is that you'll always receive a great looking podcast website. So if you don't have one, you don't have to worry about that. And some awesome audio players, that you can easily embed onto your own website. You can have detailed analytics, and you can always track who's listening and be able to retarget those listeners to your own podcast. So to start your own podcast and receive a $20 gift card from Amazon, follow the link in the show notes. This will help Buzzsprout know that we sent you to help you with your own podcast and use podcasts. Buzzsprout is the easiest way to start a podcast. All right. Now that we got that out of the way, did the housekeeping, I want to introduce one of the most influential people that I know in terms of LinkedIn marketing. As I told you, I think it was back in episode 2, if I recall. I had a show on, it was me talking about LinkedIn. And I also promised you guys that I was going to have a LinkedIn expert. It took me a while to actually get her here because she's very busy. But you ask and and you shall receive. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my good friend and business partner, Jennifer Willen. Why don't you say hello to the people out there, Jennifer?
Hello, Frank, and hello, listeners. Thanks so much for having me here, Frank.
Well, thanks for coming. I know you're a busy woman, and I know you serve a large clientele. But before we get into the question portion of the show, why don't you tell us a little bit about who Jennifer Wilner is and who do you serve, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, cool. So Jen Wilner, my business is Secretary Central. We are a virtual marketing support agency. I have a small team that works with me internationally, and we support small business owners, mostly solopreneurs, and they are a variety of people and a variety of businesses. Personally, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and live here in Edison, New Jersey, with my husband and my daughter. And I love gardening, and I love social media, and I love learning new technology.
Awesome. And she forgot to include she's humble, because Jennifer happens to be the one of the gurus that I most admire when it comes to the LinkedIn platform. She actually had a LinkedIn training course that she did prior to COVID, which I don't think she's having anymore because of COVID. But anyway, and got a lot of great feedback from it. But before we even go into the training part, what is your website where people could find out more about you, Jennifer?
Sure, it is secretarycentral.net.
Awesome. So what is Secretary Central all about?
Great question. So Secretary Central, we mostly work with our small business owners and help them with marketing. So nowadays we say digital marketing so that it's not confused with, print marketing. So that can be supporting business owners with things like Constant Contact, doing some work behind the scenes in WordPress websites, helping them with their brand identity and keeping that brand identity consistent and clear throughout all their social media, and then the message as well when they send out email newsletters, and then working with maybe promotional products companies so that all the colors and the fonts and the general message stays consistent across the board.
Okay, that's good stuff. So, and I'm assuming part of the marketing that you provide the business owners is, say, LinkedIn kind of marketing, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what have you seen in terms of in social media in general, but let's say just in from a LinkedIn perspective, as a result of COVID, have you seen a lot more engagement? Have you seen less engagement? What's that all about?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot more engagement on LinkedIn and a incredible influx of requests to connect for my clients across the board. And with the new software, so all the people are spending so much more time on social media now. So all the platforms are adding new kind of bells and whistles. So LinkedIn is doing the same, but I'm seeing like my students are telling me like they're spending more time on the platform, and they're having a much higher reach than they did before, mostly because, as I said, people have a lot more time to spend on social media, whether
Right.
they're still employed with their current employer or they're looking for a new job, whether it's virtual work. People are going to all different kinds of industries, like crossing the border kind of thing within industries, just to make money. So yeah, it's a lot busier. It's been a lot busier in these past few months.
Gotcha. Along those same lines, are you familiar with Sales Navigator at all?
Familiar, but I'm not familiar enough to really talk about it,
Right.
because the majority of my training clients are at level, what I call level 101 and 102.
Right.
So they know a little teeny bit about it, or they spend time on it, but they don't keep up to date on it. So
Yeah.
they're not in Sales Navigator.
Okay. So in your opinion, you don't think the average person would need it to get engagement, to get more reach, or is it worth the money, if you will? Because it's rather expensive, you know?
Yeah, it is expensive. I actually have a client who had a Sales Navigator and was reminded that it was coming up for renewal, and said, I understand how powerful LinkedIn is, and that if I stay active on it, that I should have a really good reach on it. In addition to the other platforms that we were using, and the other, I'm going to say, tactics that we were using in his marketing. So I said, listen, right now, if you need to save the money, save the money. I'm all about teaching people how to utilize the software that they don't have to pay for, or that's very inexpensive to pay for.
Right.
And a lot of what you talk about with SEO and Google and all that, like LinkedIn has such an incredible reach.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that people know how to use the platform, as opposed to then having to pay another. I mean, there are industries where it's important, especially like recruiting and things like that, but I don't teach it, so I don't know really all the bells and whistles for
Right.
it.
Right. Okay. No, I was just curious because I used to be a user of Sales Navigator, and just like your client, when it came up, I I just didn't renew because it built my database, and now my connection requests are growing organically. So maybe having it initially to give it a little kick is a good thing. But I was just curious about your take on it. Um,
Mhm.
but in general, LinkedIn, where do you see? I mean, it's changed tremendously since when I first started. I used LinkedIn was a tool, just so you know. There are two things I used to grow my business. Number one was Google AdWords. That was totally just on Google AdWords. And the only social media platform I ever used was LinkedIn. So those two tools is what brought build my business for me, technically. So it's changed though tremendously, Jen, over the last few years.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
is it, because I noticed that when Microsoft took it over, they said they weren't going to make so many changes. They said that they weren't going to go with automation, but there were a ton of automation tools all of a sudden now coming up for LinkedIn. What's your take on it? Are they worth it to look into it? Is it better to just do manual labor on it like it used to be? What's your take on that?
Um, so one of the biggest things that I teach my students is, in any software, you need to know how it works. So, I mean, if you're talking about manually versus automated with like scheduling and things,
Yeah.
so most people beginners may not be familiar with the fact that they can schedule posts from third-party software. So third-party software, we're talking about like Buffer and SmarterQueue and Hootsuite and et cetera, et cetera. What happens is that we're also used to using, our smartphones, these little mini computers, that the software being on our smartphones is great, but you can't write an article on your phone for LinkedIn. And it's the articles that get better reach. And that stay in your they stay in your they all stay in your profile, but they get a much better reach on through all for search engine optimization. So, the bells and whistles, I highly recommend spending the time in the platform.
Right.
And I think it's a good, we're all so time starved and so busy, whether it's, COVID or not, to be honest, that there's only so many minutes in a day. So if you were to go into software, like we use software I use some scheduling software personally for LinkedIn, but then also to go in and to respond is very important. This morning we had a conversation with Business Connects about posting about a topic and tagging. And it's not so easy for everyone to tag properly through the mobile device. Everybody has a different experience. Everybody has a different mobile device. They all look different. I mean, you and I could both have the same education with LinkedIn and then go to be tagging something, and maybe not you, but maybe, maybe somebody else and find that it looks completely different. So that's why I think it's important to spend time on the platform and learn all the bells and whistles and master them, in baby steps before you go in and start scheduling stuff. And as people say, like spamming, like nobody likes that.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Doing like tons and tons of content at once. Like that's not cool. That's not cool.
No, it's terrible. Well, you said a couple of things here that spurred on a few questions for me. You talked about the articles, and tell me about the LinkedIn articles. I was a fan of it, but I just don't have a lot of time to do a lot of it, unfortunately.
Sure.
But I have gotten a lot of reach from it. Let's talk about that, number one, and then number two. You also you kind of allude to the fact that it's better to learn the platform first on LinkedIn, and then move over to a kind of schedule
mobile app.
Or some kind of a scheduler
software.
or because you have to at least know. So I like that, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. But first, let's tap into the articles. What article versus daily post? Do you think we should write more articles or just be very consistent on the daily post? What gives you the most reach, more bang for the buck?
So, the articles for someone, if you don't have a blog on your website and you're in an industry, so there's two, I'm going to say there's two people. So, Jane may not work for a company as an entrepreneur, may not work for a company that writes. So she may have to hire someone to be a writer for her, where Joe may work for this huge company. Let's say Joe is in furniture sales and Jane sells candles. Right. So Joe works for a company that does furniture sales, and they have writers on board. So Joe has the availability of getting this content and can share these articles onto LinkedIn. So he works for this company where he doesn't personally have a blog. Where LinkedIn, your articles then in turn are your blog, because you can, as you know, you're writing the content. You can there's alt text. And in layman's terms, when you're putting pictures in, whether it's a website or a blog, meaning describing the photo.
Right.
So you can add the photos, you can add video, and it stays there. But I think what the beauty of that is that you can then take that article and then you can share that article in multiple places, because LinkedIn gives you a link to that exact article. So you can take that article and share it. You can put it in your newsletter. You can put it in your email signature. And you can then ask people for comments on it. Yeah. So that article then can take on a life of its own, which I think is great. Where a post, you can get the link, but LinkedIn doesn't give you the link when you write a post. In your article, you can work on your keywords. Make sure that you put your keywords into your article. Right. And then at the end, so with the article and the post, you absolutely want to have keywords at the bottom of your post or your article. But you have a lot more space as far as text in an article, which I think is really important, because these, last I checked, the articles are super, let's say, ranking visible to Google, to our friends at Google, as opposed to a post.
Yeah. And it's really cool, because the great thing about the articles that I've used is, because I'm a paid, I love paid advertising. I'm a huge fan of it. I'm a huge fan of SEO as well, but the paid stuff is so cool. If there was an article that I see that I'm getting a lot of interaction with in LinkedIn, I then create a paid link to it. So on Facebook, so I take it off of LinkedIn, point it to my Facebook followers, and run paid ads on that. So it's pretty cool. I love it. It's definitely a good thing. But it's not, I like what you said, because a lot of people think that it's a set and forget. It's like you write the article and let people, you got to work at it, right? You got to share it. You have to. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where people like yourself come in, right? Where you can help a business who doesn't have that kind of time to actually do that for them, correct?
Right. So then you have, we were talking about Jane and Joe. So then Jane sells candles, and Jane may not know what to write about. Jane's not a writer. Jane has to hire people to write for her.
Right.
And so she can take, let's say if she works with someone like me or anybody else who helps her write a blog, then, and maybe she can't afford a website. So her LinkedIn articles can then serve as her blog for her website. Or she can, as they call evergreen content, she may have a blog that she wrote on her website, and it's really short and sweet, and she wants to kind of get into it a little bit more. Maybe talk about the colors of her candles and color psychology. There's the candle companies talk about the difference in the wicks and what's safer for you and what's not. So they can go into all, like, really, really expand on the content and get the exposure that, use that platform to get the exposure that, that she may not be able to maybe afford her own website.
Yeah.
That's how I started on LinkedIn. I didn't have a website for years. LinkedIn was my website. Everything came to LinkedIn.
Well, that leads me to another question for you. Why LinkedIn? Why did you latch on to that as opposed to, say, Facebook? You didn't want to be
Facebook
a follower?
To me was always, So, I mean, I do love Facebook, but Facebook was always changing so fast. Like the movie, like Fast and Furious. Right. I feel like the software and the, it's exhausting to keep up with Facebook. And yes, LinkedIn has been changing, but I feel that because they don't change as quickly, there are more people who I can connect to, and I can get educated with LinkedIn about the stats. So we
Right.
can't see the stats for Facebook as much because they keep changing things. So one of the stats we had that I found from an article was there was over 610 million members last year on LinkedIn.
Right.
Like, that's crazy. That's
Wow.
so many people. Yeah. Another stat was that LinkedIn drives more traffic to websites and blogs than any other social media platform. And, you can go in, if you're not sure, one of my favorite tricks is if you want to check out somebody on LinkedIn, but you don't want them to know, you go into your search engine and type their name and type in LinkedIn, and their profile pops up if they have one, instead of searching them on LinkedIn. So
Mm.
I don't know that you can do that.
There's a ninja trick by Jennifer
Ding,
Wilson.
ding, 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 ding.
Awesome. I did not know that either.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think they said the data was data from more than 5,000 companies found
Right.
that LinkedIn produced 277% more leads than Facebook and Twitter last year. That's
Ouch.
crazy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the second point that I wanted to iterate, reiterate, I should say, is your point of learning the platform first before going to a tool. So let's assume that I've got a very astute and sharp listening crowd here. I'm sure they are, and they already know the platform first. Give me one or two tools that you think are good, and I'll drop a link on the show notes, guys, so in case you want to check these tools out, that you think that you can recommend that are good for LinkedIn.
So tools as far as,
For scheduling posts or
okay.
that kind of stuff.
So yeah, a free tool
Mm-hmm.
is Buffer. We love Buffer.
Mm-hmm.
And Buffer is, if you're not familiar with Buffer, has a Chrome extension. So you can go to an article on your website and just click on it and send it to LinkedIn.
Wow.
Yeah, so Buffer's fantastic. And the free version, you can only have 20 posts in a profile in the free version. So you can schedule them. So free scheduling up to 3 profiles, but you can only post 20. You can only upload 20 posts at a time. And
at a time, not total.
At a time. No, at a time.
Oh, okay.
So today you do 20, and then 2 days from now you jump on and add more into the pipeline. It's wonderful.
Excellent.
Smarter Queue is my favorite, like above and beyond. It's more complicated, but it has categories, and it has you can have multiple platforms. So I do not believe they have a free version, except for maybe a trial version. But Smarter Queue, you can connect to your website, and you can type in, I don't mean connect to your website, but you can give it a feed. So your website link to your blog,
right,
and then schedule the content, and including your hashtags. You have a preview of what it looks like. What I have not seen, and I haven't used, Hootsuite, I know is really good at this also, but I haven't used it in quite a while. I'm not seeing any of these third-party scheduling apps giving you the ability to tag somebody with what I call a hot tag. So if I was to post something and then say @Frank Deming,
mm-hmm.
I can write it, but it's not going to grab your name.
Okay.
So yeah, so these particular tools that I'm mentioning don't offer that. So then you have to remember and go back in and edit the post and then tag the person. And that's hugely important for your reach, tagging people. on LinkedIn. If so, guys, if you're listening, that's like your second gift. Tag people, the relevant people,
Yeah.
for your article to increase the reach and conversation.
So these tools, out of curiosity, do they also allow you to schedule articles or just posts?
Just posts. So you
Okay.
can only do an article in LinkedIn,
Mhm.
in actually LinkedIn. And what's beautiful about doing that is thinking of LinkedIn like a website.
Yeah.
So when you're in a WordPress website, you can write an article, and then you're not ready to publish it yet, or you need to walk away from it and think about it again. You just save it as a draft.
Yeah.
So in LinkedIn Publisher, I highly recommend starting an article in Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever. And then as you're working on it, save it in your drafts in LinkedIn Publisher. And when you're ready, you can just go in and click publish. But there's no scheduling an article even on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
When it's, not yet. You never know.
um, all right, I'm gonna come up with a controversial topic here, and I'm not gonna tell you which side I was on because I don't want to guide you through an answer because I want you to give me, even if you think I'm on the wrong side of it, but
Okay.
it's okay. It's your opinion. I had not an argument. I had a discussion with someone who said to me that using LinkedIn as a marketing tool to grow your business is no longer viable. That it's really, really good as a recruiting tool. And, recruiters are using it to basically grab people and recruit them into different companies, et cetera, et cetera. What's your take on that? Is there any validity to that?
So I think LinkedIn has always been a recruiter's tool.
Mm-hmm.
I was recruited from LinkedIn to work for a company, ironically. My first client was an accounting recruiter, and we did a lot of work through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But there's ways. So I'm going to say no. There's absolutely not. LinkedIn is a marketing tool. Yes, it's great for recruiters,
Mm-hmm.
but some people may think that, LinkedIn is my dad's platform, or right?
Are those Instagram
LinkedIn is just where
users?
my no, a lot of, I want to say, even our generation, they think that it was, that's my resume.
Right.
Like, no, it's social media.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
not a PDF online that just sits there static. So no, I have to say, no, I don't agree. Yeah, it's great for recruiters, but no, it's a marketing tool.
Yeah.
It's definitely a marketing tool, and it's a business relationship building tool.
Yeah. That means you just saved our friendship because you agree with me. I'm just joking.
Yay! Phew!
Nah. That was I was just curious. It was an interesting conversation. The person was just, I guess he was just very frustrated with LinkedIn. He wasn't getting any. I think it was just was not using it properly. He needed a Jennifer Wilner on his side helping him actually grow it. But anywho, that's just my little tidbit there. Okay, a few questions here. I know you're a busy woman. I don't want to hijack your whole day, but I want to make sure that I get enough valuable questions out there that I know is going to help my
Of
listeners.
course.
So the whole, and I'm looking, I'm thinking about this because of some conversations that you and I have had in the past, and how important are the hashtags in LinkedIn? And is there a limit? I mean, because there's been rumors out there. I've read two different types of opinions on this. One is that you can fill it up with hashtags, just like Instagram. And the other one is that you should limit it to just 3. So those are the two, so I guess it's a 2-part question. A, how important is hashtags in LinkedIn? And B, is there a limit to what you should do for you could get the best reach?
Okay, so this is one of those things that is like nails down a chalkboard to me.
Ooh.
When people are on these little devices called smartphones that we have, and they're on Instagram, and it says share, that does not mean that the content from Instagram belongs on LinkedIn,
Right.
for multiple reasons. So I will write privately if it's a connection of mine and tell them, please don't send Instagram to LinkedIn. If you want to, because of the hashtag. So for 2 reasons. One reason, the size of the image is incorrect going from Instagram to LinkedIn.
Right.
The second reason, the hashtags. Instagram works off all those hashtags. Instagram wants like 30 hashtags.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I'm a big believer in sticking with 3, finding your core 3. And so maybe there's core 2, and then there's 1 for the subject. And if that doesn't work, do some beta testing if you need to do 5. But, oh, geez, just please don't be Instagramming on LinkedIn. That's why there's all these different platforms, honestly.
Yeah.
And also the photo sizes on all these platforms are different.
Yep.
And people have to pay attention to that. Definitely have to pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's true. So that's so you're saying you're recommending, no more than 3.
I say 3.
Mm-hmm.
I do a little bit of beta testing. If you're having, let's say you have a post, you're talking about an event,
Mm-hmm.
and with your event that you're talking about or your special offer, if it is talking about more than one person and your niche is one thing and your speaker or your special guest or their topic is something else, and they
Right.
have a big following, to yes, absolutely include a couple of their hashtags if they are working very hard. If there's not going to be, if they don't have any traction for their hashtags, then it really doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay, so that answers my question there. Another question that just popped up as well is, you and I are both B2B, so we find it very user friendly to capture our ideal customers on the friendly platform, as we love, called LinkedIn. But what would you say to a B2C company? Let's say a restaurant, a nail salon, a a chiropractor, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a viable platform for them? Should they just stick to, say, something like a LinkedIn? I mean, something like a Facebook or Instagram.
I mean, there's definitely scenarios where you can tweak your content and
Right.
use it on LinkedIn. So for instance, realtors are B2C, unless they're selling, because they're customers, it's a person. Unless if you're selling commercial real estate, then yes, you're selling to corporate. But realtors have a tremendous reach on LinkedIn. And there's something called a LinkedIn company page.
Right.
So if you don't have a lot of content to put out there to your market, you want people to be able to find you as personally as well as your company on LinkedIn, because that gives it a little bit more what's what I'm looking for, like validity,
Right.
of your company. And so yeah, definitely you can definitely be B2B on LinkedIn. And there are other companies, limousine service. You could be, there's just, I see content, and then somebody says, oh, such and such a company. Oh yeah, no, there's so much content. People they forget how much content there is about them or their industry. That's what keeps writers in business.
That's true. Um,
Yeah.
that's funny you mentioned real estate agents because I have a couple of real estate agents as clients of mine. And when, I use Google and Facebook to do their B2C, but I use LinkedIn for their B2B. And the way I use it is because they build relationships with mortgage brokers, with real estate attorneys, with title insurances. So it grows their network um, for referring business to other partners, if you will.
Sure.
And that's the strategy I use. I do not use it as a lead generation for them. I use it more of a business bonding tool. But I don't. Maybe I gotta look into that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and for them to keep their face out there
Yeah.
on another platform that is extremely busy.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn, I think the beauty of LinkedIn with like I did a training class last fall. I had one specifically for realtors. And then I had another which was great because the majority of them, like, they came away, they like minds blown, emoji of the things that they could do. But then after, I had another class, and the majority of them were personal trainers
Okay.
and that worked within a franchise. So that's B2B, B2C, sorry.
Hmm.
And them then learning how they can reach a completely different segment and talk on a more professional level as opposed to more laid back on Facebook. They
Yeah.
can do their Facebook lives, and they can talk about their classes and stuff like that on Facebook and Instagram, and then on LinkedIn they can be the franchise owner.
Yeah. And then the thing is also is well, LinkedIn also has a live. Have you used it at all? The LinkedIn lives?
I don't have access to it yet, unfortunately. Come on, LinkedIn.
Okay.
I've reached out to people. I've had the LinkedIn events feature.
Yeah.
I noticed before a lot of my connections did,
Hmm.
but I don't have access to LinkedIn Live yet. Bummer. I'm waiting
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, that is a bummer. But you can use it via YouTube though. You can there's a way you can attach your YouTube channel if you go live on YouTube, and it will connect into your LinkedIn profile.
Oh,
That's
I'm loving that.
I
Okay.
I
Maybe I
um
check
I
that out.
have not tested it myself, but
Okay.
a very uh, reliable source told me that it's possible.
Fantastic. I'm always learning something from you, Frank.
As of just like me, I'm learning from you here. I've learned a lot. Is there any, before I let you go, is there anything that I might have missed in terms of what you think can add value to people? Um, that's the last question. But before I go to that question, before you answer that, can you please remind us of your website once again?
Sure. My website is secretarycentral.net. That's www.secretarycentral.net.
Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, anything that I might have missed?
So there is, as we were talking real estate before,
Yes.
so a big piece of real estate that people forget to use on LinkedIn. And if this is one of the, I'm going to say there's two things. Number one, there's something on your profile called the constellation. The very, very first thing that people see when they go to your profile that's above your profile photo.
Right.
That is like a gift from LinkedIn
Really?
to be able to um, put a photo, put text in. You can say something like, ask me about,
Hmm.
and you can use software like Canva. You can have a graphic designer help you with it, but it's an opportunity, and you can update it as much as you want, as often as you want.
Right.
It's an amazing space. So that's So that's that. And also, so ask people for reviews, endorsements. People get endorsements and reviews confused on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, if somebody asks me for an endorsement, I'm not going to give them an endorsement because endorsements are pulled from the words in your experience. It's kind of like they're keywords that LinkedIn pulls. And a lot of people don't realize that I don't need to be endorsed for Microsoft Outlook.
Right.
Or Gmail.
Right.
I do want someone to give me a review that they learned of something of value from a LinkedIn class or a seminar or a podcast. So that's huge. So I think reviews, people forget to ask for reviews.
Yeah, that's a big thing, especially now as LinkedIn grows. I mean, there's tons of users on there, but as much as it's growing as a marketing platform, I think that's even more important because they want to make sure that you have something on there as well. So that's good. That's good advice.
Thank you.
Glad I asked the question because
me too.
I would have forgotten. So with that said, folks, I'm going to bid farewell to episode 25 of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses. I hope you got a lot of value out of this as much as I did because I learned a lot of stuff. I want you to go out there and start implementing and start using what she is telling you to do. And if you're struggling with it, you can always reach out to her. The link is in the show notes. This was Jennifer Wilmer. My name is Frank Deming, the local business guy. And until next week with another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, I'm going to say bye-bye, everyone. Have a great weekend. Take care and bye for now.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. Don't forget, any links that were mentioned during the broadcast will be available to you in the show notes, so be sure to grab them while you have the chance. Incidentally, if you have any topics that you would like for us to discuss on the show, be sure to send an email to the email provided in the show notes, or click the Contact Us link and let us know what topic you would like us to help you with, and we'll be sure to add it to our schedule. If you would like for Frank and his team to look at your digital marketing presence and give you a free evaluation, simply click the Request a Free Consultation link in the show notes to get a hold of them. That being said, until our next episode, make it a successful digital marketing day. Peace out.